Lecture 23, Part 3. In this part, we'll talk about the most important problem for hidden Markov model is basically how to train them, how to figure out the weights, or here we are figuring out the conditional probability table. So that being said, it is important, but after I went through it once myself, I feel it's kind of way too difficult to ask you something about this in the midterm and in the final. So I will say that this is completely optional. And if you are interested in how to learn a hidden Markov model, you may want to go through these algebra with me. And if you are just interested in the midterm and stuff, you can ignore this completely because it's very complicated. And we will talk about expectation maximization again after the midterm, but that will be a lot simpler than this. So, and I'll go over the whole thing again at that point. So, okay, so if you are still here with me, and in the previous lecture, the good news is I already talked about the brief outline of what we're doing here. So we are just directly going into the algebra, and let's try to figure these things out. So the first step is we are going to figure out we need to be able to count the number of times things are happening. So we need to count, say, the number of times xt is equal to I and xt plus 1 is equal to j or something like that. And we also need to count the single marginal probabilities. So the problem here is we don't know these y's. I mean, we know these y's, but we don't know these x's. So we are only given these y's. So we need to break each problem into two parts. One part is given our xt is I, what's the probability of observing everything happening before this time t? So here y1 to yt. And the other one is what's happening after this. So yt until y large t, so basically the end of the sequence. So we are going to call the first part of the problem the forward pass. So we are computing the probability that a hidden state is a particular value given we are observing everything that happened before. So now what's this probability? So you should probably remember this from the evaluation problem. So basically in the previous part, the very easy part, the way to compute this is we need to sum up over all possible value of all previous x values. So in particular, what I mean is we y1 until yt, because we need all of the parents, remember? And so we need x1 and xt minus 1 and xt. We need to sum up x1 is 0, 1, x2 is 0, 1, and all of them are 0, 1. So we need to sum up a bunch of them. And also remember, we talked about dynamic programming, so we're going to store these values so that we can save some time to just compute all of them. So we're going to start with the first time point. The first time point basically says what's the probability of y1, and x1 is some value I, and that's very simple. It's just the probability of x1 being I multiplied by the probability of y1 being y1 given I. So that's very simple. And the next one is also very simple. So this is x, say y1, y2, x1 is, I don't know, and x2 is our I. So what will happen is we are multiplying first y1, x1 we computed already from the previous part, so that's our HAT part. And the remaining new part is first y2 given the current state is I, so it's our B, and second is we transition from previous whatever that state is to I. So this is state J to I, so we multiply by that probability. So now I think you can see this recursively. So if you want to look at y1, y2, y3, then it's basically y1, y2 probability, and suppose it ends at some state j, then we need to multiply by the probability that the state j transition to state I here. So our last one is I, and we also need the last one yt given our yt here. Okay, so that's done recursively. And the next is we need to know what's the probability of observing the labels after this time point. So basically here, starting from t plus 1, what's the probability of observing the future, basically, if we know the current hidden state. And we will use the convention that at the end everything has probability 1, because this means basically like nothing is happening. It's just the probability of something, and given, I mean, probably the empty probability given x large t, the last state is I, so it's basically non-existent. So we'll say it's 1. And the important part is how to go back. So let's try this with t minus 1. So here is yt, and xt minus 1 is I, and yes, we're given those parameters, so I'm not going to rewrite it every time. So here, again, we're going to use the same trick, right? So we are going to add our xt, and we're going to sum it up. So we're going to sum up over all possible value of our xt, and then we are just going to use what happened in the next time period. It's not actually that. So they are actually equal to each other. And sorry, this is an I. So here, this is our sum over the future periods, xt value. And now we have our transition matrix. So basically, we want to know what's the probability that this I gets transitioned to either one of these. Remember, one of the indexes j, so I gets transformed to j, and also in the next period, given we are at the state j, which is xt here, we observe this value yt, y large t here. And we are just multiplying by 1 for the last period. Again, wy, we are setting these as 1. And suppose we go one step further, say t, what's the next one? T minus 1, and given yt minus 2 is I. Then again, we're going to add xt and xt minus 1 here, and we're going to loop through all possibilities. But we know this already from this bi large t minus 1. And then we can do this recursively. We know that probability, so we just need to add what's the probability of this happening and summing up all possible ones of these. And so these are basically the j's now. And we want to transition from I to j here. And similarly, given the state j, we want to figure out what's the probability of, say, yt minus 1. So I think I may not be that clear, but if you clean up the algebra, you can see why these recursive formulas would work. So again, we're recursively figuring out all of these probabilities, and now you want to see why we just computed these. It's because we actually want to find this basically frequency. So remember at the beginning I said we want to count the number of xt's that is in state I. So here what we're going to do is this probability is actually the probability of xt is I and y1 until yt divided by the probability of y1 until yt. So first we're going to use Bayes' rule. I mean, that is basically already Bayes' rule, but we're going to condition on this xt is j and just sum them out, right? Then you can see that these two are basically the same expression. That's why we have like the same expressions here. And we are just summing out all possible values of j and put the probability that it's equal to a specific I as that fraction. So that's the easy part. And hard part is what this thing is. But the good news is we already have from the forward and backward paths y until t xt is I, and we also have the other one, yt plus 1 until yt given xt is I. So we have these two, and remember, if we multiply these probabilities, we get that. So that's why it's alpha times beta. Now you see why are we computing these betas and these alphas, right? So we just need them here to get the combined probability of hidden state at time t is I, given the sequence that we observed, given the training data, basically. So this formula should be easy to understand. And let's move on. This one looks like more complicated. And we want both of these happening at the same time because we need the transition probability. So these are basically counting the number of xt is I and xt plus 1 is j. And we're going to do the same trick. This is probably xt is I, xt plus 1 is j, and we're given the training set y1, yt, and yt plus 1, yt plus 2 until yt. That probability divided by, again, summing over all the possible values of these, like x equals to I and xt plus 1 equals to j. So I'm not going to rewrite that, but basically that's the probability of observing those y's. So it's just a normalization factor. And here we need to decompose these things into multiple parts. So here it is just, we know, what do we know? We know the joint probability of these things combined with this. These are the alphas. And we know the transition probability. So basically the probability of getting this is just our aij. And we know the probability of these things given xt plus 1. So here, note the index. We're skipping xt plus 1. We're just directly going to xt plus 2. So these ones are the beta ones, beta jt plus 1. And this is alpha it. And at the end, we need to figure what this is. This is basically this thing given xjt, which is our large B yt plus 1 given j. Right. So if you are familiar with what we have done in the last lecture, this should be very quick. And then after we have all of these probabilities, we get both the denominator and the numerator at the same time. Just the denominator is just summing up all the possible values of our I and j, basically as a normalizing factor. And then we can get these count all just frequency. So now we have everything we want. We can just do our very, very simple thing of just dividing the number of times something happens over the total number of times, like total number of training sequences we have. So that's exactly what we're doing here. So pi is basically the number of times xt is, x1 is I divided by the total number of training data. So it's exactly our gamma I1. So remember, this 1 is the t, so this is the initial time. So this is just maximum likelihood, as we have done like many times already. And second, these are the transition matrices, and we want the number of times xt is I, xt plus 1 is j. And remember, we need to divide by given xt is I. So again, these gammas are these marginal probabilities, and these xi's are these joint probabilities, and they basically represent exactly what these frequencies are, and then we just divide them again to get our new transition matrix entries. And note that we are summing over all the instances, so basically all the training sequences, each instance is a sequence, and also summing up over all possible times, because we just want like the frequency, the number of times we have I transition to j. It doesn't matter at which time point within a sequence it is happening. And next, Again, it's similar. So we're counting the number of times xt is I and yt is j. And yt is j is just kind of an indicator because we know these already from the training data. So we just have an indicator and then we multiply by this count. Well, that basically counts the number of times these are happening at the same time. And again, we are dividing it by this, which is exactly this expression. We are also summing over all the sequences and over all time periods within the sequence. And so we get B. So the last step should be straightforward after we computed all of these kind of counts of frequencies. And then, of course, we're going to repeat many times until it converges. So basically, we start with the pi AB, and then we end up with the same or similar pi AB, then we stop. So these algorithms are kind of like gradient descent. It may lead to some kind of local minimum, local maximum. So we can start with different random values, and then we at the end we need to figure out like which one is better and so on.